make sure that you know who is who. So my name is Dietrich. I'm from Callas Software, and I'm also vice chairman of the PDF Association.
And he's being very humble because he's also the ISO liaison officer of the PDF Association. I am the CEO of the PDF Association and the ISO project leader for PDF UA, ISO 14289, and PDF 32000 and ISO 32000. So we're here to give you an update on what's all is going on at the ISO table for PDF standards, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's first of all, we're going to give you a brief update on changes at the association. I'm not going to read this, I'm just going to run through it very quickly. But in a nutshell, we acquired the development of the management of the ISO committee from the 3D PDF Consortium recently, and that's since the last in-person meeting here in Europe. And in response to that, because we've now adopted development of those specifications as well, those extensions to PDF, we now have the 3D PDF TWG and 3D PDF users liaison working group to support that development. We've got a formal process of integrating errata, as Peter was just saying in his keynote. There's new guidance, as you've seen, on the website. We've got a project running to develop EA PDF in concert with the University of Illinois. So there's many different activities going on at the PDF Association. But here, we're going to restrict ourselves explicitly to the ISO work. So what's happening and what's coming?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we will run you through, we've heard that Peter said 35 different standards related to PDF. We will run you through 17 of them, 17 who have been recently modified work items, recently published from ISO or currently being worked on. 17 standards, each of the standards has its own pages in our slides. It's either one or two slides for each of them. And each of the slides has the same structure, so that we won't be able to talk about every item on here, but each of the slides has the same structure. And I'd like to start with PDF-A. PDF A4 was published in 2020. So all of the work items here are currently being worked on or have been published since we've last met in Berlin, since 2018. The new thing about PDF A4 is that it is based on ISO 32000-2, the new PDF 2.0 standard. And the major changes that by in itself is the major change. So if you would have a PDF 2.0 file, if you would want to archive it, then you should go for PDF A4, which also means it's not by far not the predominant PDF A flavor, as we all know, that often is still PDF A1. In addition to that, there are some unnecessary requirements we learned from the market that are removed, so it's also easier to convert to PDF A4. And the other thing that we will learn later on, PDF is part of our IT world, and the things that change the most around us are adjustments to increasing security risks. And PDF in such a world needs to evolve and adopt to the requirements there. And that is something that is addressed in PDF 2.0 and inherited by PDF A4. Yeah, and another item that you will find on all of the slides is related sessions. So we have a few related sessions here, email archiving. I think in this very room after lunch, 10 years of PDF A3-based invoicing, PDF A3 as the format for PDF-based electronic invoicing, and then how to make PDF A conversion easier. Also, I think in this room, doesn't matter, and that is also about how to, what flavor to use actually. Yeah. Then PDF-A4, PDF-A probably is the most often used subset. PDF-X is for print and prepress and blind data exchange. It's the oldest one. So the first version of PDF-X came out in the last century, 1999. It's as PDF-A restricted. PDF-X6, the new thing, is also based on 30,000-2 on PDF-2.0. And the other thing is it's very much aligned with PDF-A4. So it's much easier than in previous flavors to convert a PDF file to both of the standards. And in that industry, which I'm very much active in, the print industry, we are currently doing the transition from PDF-X1 last century to PDF-X4. So I just saying this to bring things into perspective. So currently, we have many people around that say, I don't want to go back to PDF-X1. But sometimes it really takes a long time until you see a standard in reality. Okay. Okay, and then there are a couple of new things in PDF-2.0 that are inherited by PDF-X6 from PDF-2.0, mostly page-based automation and prepress. Everything is around PDF automation in these days, and we have two tracks related to this industry. That is Gantt workgroup specifications by David, and I will be talking on variable data print, and a thing that is much evolving in print, tomorrow. Yeah, and then we are at print now, PDF-VT. I try to keep short on this one. That is about variable data print and transactional invoice printing. Yeah, it's based on PDF-X6, so it's very closely aligned to PDF-X6, and it just adds additional metadata to make it easier or to allow for automated processing. And that will also, I will be touching on that in my presentation tomorrow. And then there is a last one, a print product metadata. We can be really short on that one. That again is metadata. I'm done. That again is metadata for print automation, standardized metadata. I really like metadata because it makes automation possible. And that is one thing we are currently working on quite actively at PDF Association. So if you happen to are interested in print automation and metadata for that, it would be great if you would join us in the print product metadata LWG.
All right, so I'll step up here. In one of my roles in the industry is I serve as the ISO project leader for PDF UA, ISO 14289, which is one of the major subset specifications standards that's very much heavily under development. There are, I believe, well, actually, I'm going to go through this later. There are many working groups at the PDF Association that have some interest or focus on accessibility, text extraction, and content reuse. But PDF UA in particular is, of course, focused exclusively on accessibility. And our timeline there is very tight. The committee is working, the editing committee is working on a weekly basis, reviewing the existing draft of the specification and generating comments against the next meeting that's coming up this fall, the next ISO meeting. It's our intention, actually, the ISO clock requires us to be able to send out PDF UA2 as a DIS by next January, or I believe February of 2023. Major changes in PDF UA2, of course, like PDF X6 and A4, PDF UA2 is also based on PDF 2.0, which itself was heavily upgraded from PDF 1.7 to include a complete rewrite of the tag PDF clause. PDF UA2 itself is fully rewritten and reorganized. It includes many new provisions, frankly, that were missed in PDF UA1. So complete review of structure element attributes there, and complete provisions, detailed provisions for annotations. The processor requirements component has been, we're up against the ISO clock. We're basically out of time to do processor, to review to get to the processor requirements component that was in PDF UA1. That's now going to become a separate document. And the PDF Association, responding to a request from the ISO committee, has created a new liaison working group expressly for the purpose of developing PDF UA processor requirements. So there are a couple of different sessions coming up at PDF Days about PDF UA, one in particular from Matthew Hardy regarding aligning PDF 1.7 and 2.0 tag sets. And then a fascinating session, I think, on the problem and the solutions that are being worked on by the LaTeX project. LaTeX, as you know, is a typesetting system responsible for generating the vast majority of academic publishing, particularly technical academic publishing worldwide. And that team, the LaTeX project development team, is heavily involved with the PDF Association in coming to understand tag PDF so they can do a great job of it in LaTeX. But very interestingly, we are also gaining a tremendous amount from the LaTeX project as they come and bring their understanding of technical and scientific publishing and apply it to what we thought we knew about tag PDF. And it's been fascinating. So getting involved, I'm just going to put a quick pitch out there for the major focus of accessibility at the PDF Association. There are, it looks like, 6 technical and liaison working groups all working on various aspects of accessibility. So from the development of PDF UA to thinking about reuse as a more general as a more general use case. Accessibility is really a subset of reuse. We're developing atomic test files in the Accessibility Liaison Working Group. I mentioned the LaTeX project. And then there's an Accessibility Service Bureau has been studying AT support for tag PDF. So it's a major focus as it is in the PDF industry as a whole. And of course, a lot of different ways to get involved, actually, for members and also for non-members in specific areas. So PDFR, I guess, am I speaking?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so PDFR was developed within the PDF Association as originally as PDF raster. It was as a request from the Twain Working Group. They wanted to create a specification so they could start to produce PDF files directly from imaging systems. They came to us with a draft specification, and we said, well, perhaps we can help you with that. Let's actually make it a really great PDF specification and then standardize it through ISO. So that's what happened. PDF raster, which is still downloadable for free from pdfa.org, is now really replaced by ISO 23504. It's a subset, actually, slightly interestingly, of both 32,000 Part 1 and Part 2. Don't ask me to get into the details. You'd have to ask Rene Rabe for that, who's right there. Okay, so, and this is all about image capture, of course, as I mentioned, and has the key feature is a super simple PDF that does exactly what you need it to do and is super simple enough to be able to come off an imaging system. I'm going to stop there because I know the guy who actually understands this stuff is sitting right in front of me, so I will embarrass myself if I say very much more about it. So, but do go to his talk if you're interested in learning about the future of imaging in PDF. So there, I should have stepped by this slide here. There are proposals, and Rene is going to talk about this, for support for new codecs in PDF. And there's a session that's coming up on Tuesday afternoon. And you can get involved as a member by getting in touch with the PDFR technical working group, something you can do through the member area.
And that's me. Yeah, that is about crypto and signatures. I just said this is something that is always evolving around us, around PDF in the IT world, and PDF needs to adjust to that. So that is probably always something that will be in the forefront of things that are being changed in PDF. There are 3 extensions. So extensions is a new term here. When we develop at ISO PDF 2.0 further into the future, the current approach is to publish something first as an extension. Yeah? And these are 2 of them. There are on this slide actually 4 extensions. 2 of them are already published. And I have, yeah, I have half of a slide for each of them. This is 30,001. It has been or is about to be published. So the committee said, okay, we are done, gave it to ISO, and it's now in the internal ISO processes to be published probably within this year. That is the first one. It's about hash algorithms. So you have to have in a PDF file, when you have a signature, to have a hash associated with the signature so that a reader can identify whether there were any changes. And then there are new algorithms for building that hash. And then, of course, you need to do something with the hash so that it's not easy to modify it. So you also need to encrypt it somehow, the hash. And that is the second thing that we see here, 3002, that is about extensions to digital signatures, allowing for more advanced encryption algorithms. The next one is not yet done. It's still in a draft stage. It's still being discussed. That is about, and I don't really understand what that is, ASGCM. It's a fast way to encrypt things, advanced authenticated encryption and decryption. And you should find Leonard, who is at the event, if you want to know more about that. And the last one is interesting. It's 30,004. It's about integrity protection. It is about a symmetric encryption where you have a key other than a signature, so it can be used as a complement to a signature or as an alternative where you don't need the private public key complexity of a signature. You just have a key that is used to encrypt a PDF file and then proves that the one who has created the PDF file did know the key at that time. And that is called a message authentication code. That is, I can even spell that, that is in the PDF file. And I think that's you.
Okay, so I'm going to, so here I'm presenting this because we're iterating through these things, not, I should emphasize, because I am an expert or even particularly knowledgeable about all these various extensions. One of the interesting characteristics of PDF is that the technology, its capabilities, its use cases are so broad and wide that there's really no possibility of having sufficient scope to be able to encompass it all. With that said, the ISO technical specification 24064 is an extension, as Dietrich was mentioning, to PDF 2.0. And it introduces the possibility of step data directly in PDF files in the context of annotation. And the applicability of this is very much for engineering workflows. The STEP is a file format that's used extensively in the aerospace industry. Your track moderator here, Kenny, can tell you as much or more than you could possibly want to know about STEP. I have confidence in that. In fact, I'm going to the history of our involvement with STEP, because it's not, obviously, as you might guess, a native technology to PDF, but this is part of the work that's coming to the PDF Association as a function of our taking over a responsibility for managing the ISO technical committee, the subcommittee anyway, for PDF development, which is where this work was already initiated. So we're continuing to support the development of new annotations and new types of data in PDF when there's community need for it, as in this case. And so very much along those lines, there's also another technical specification on the way. It's not yet advanced to the same point of STEP, which has been, I believe, it's approved pending it's going to be finalized, I think, this fall. I don't mean to say exactly what its status is right now. GLTF is somewhat behind that. It's another 3D format, and that's most of what I know about GLTF. It's another extension to PDF. Similar use cases to STEP, broadly speaking, and this is, again, a technology community out there is interested in finding ways to leverage PDF as a vehicle, as a platform for utilizing GLTF data in the medium of digital documents. And so, that is our job, really, in the ISO community, is to listen to community needs, and when people come and make a case and have a technical suggestion for us to take that on board and to make it possible for an industry to get the needs that they have met.
So
non-rectangular links, another
that
extension.
is me.
That better be you.
I'm the yeah.
Yes,
So that is about in a PDF file you can have a link annotation, and then if somebody clicks on that link annotation, it will go to wherever the link leads you to. Other than in HTML, the area for the link is specified separately, so it's not associated with an object, it's associated with an area on the page. And up until today, that area always has to be rectangular. And the idea is to make it possible to have circles or whatsoever. I think that one of the initial ideas was to make it possible to link on a CD, which happens to be a circle and not a rectangular thing. But it will also be possible to have whatever shape you would want to specify in a PDF file. We were pretty close to publication. Then it turned out that there were some oversights, things that were not covered, so we had to cancel the procedure and start over. This is just being started over. We can expect it to be published next year or thereafter. And that's you.
So another discussion at the ISO table is ECMAScript in PDF. Now, in 2020, the ISO 21757 was published as a standardized, really, the JavaScript API, or at least part of the JavaScript of Adobe's original JavaScript API for PDF. And this document was published, and we continue to monitor it there's a bunch of discussions about whether and how it should be updated or changed, and that, I don't believe we've actually started any project on that, but it was published in 2020, certainly since we met previously, and so it's one of our 17 standards that we needed to mention at this time. But there's actually no current work in terms of updating this document, and that's something, again, that we would look to community input on. Is this the sort of work that needs to be done? What are the kinds of changes that need to be done? This is very much the purpose, in part, of these kinds of meetings, is to solicit people to develop feedback on that sort of thing. But the proposal, there have been suggestions that the content should be redeveloped, but this project has not been started yet.
Yeah, 2D image codecs. So in PDF, you can have a TIFF, uncompressed, or what is it? Lossless compressed images. You can have JPEG, you can have JBIG, and you can have JPEG 2000. In these days, there are more modern codecs around. We created a shortlist, and two of these codecs will probably make it into PDF, which is AWIF and JPEG XL. They provide for high dynamic range images, which makes these things more complex. We are working on it for quite some time now, and it will probably take 2 or even more years until we are able to publish something, but that will make it easier to encode images into PDF file that had been created according to these codecs. And I believe René is talking about that in his session, right?
So, I wanted to mention it shortly, as well as meta compression, not only HDR, but also further improving.
Okay, cool. So you should visit his session if you want to know more. Yeah, that's, as I've said, I'm always excited about metadata, so that gave me 2 more slides here. XMP serialization. So XMP is the metadata format that we use in PDF. In PDF, we use a serialization of it as RDF. But in these days, for structured data, there's one thing that you would usually use, which is JSON. And JSON happens to have a derivative that works very well for what XMP does, which is JSON LD. And therefore, there already is a standard that has been published, which is XMP serialization and JSON. And then there is another thing related to XMP, which is currently work in progress, and that goes beyond the document. So use XMP metadata in order to link, to have links from your metadata to several document parts or parts of documents, and I don't know, link them somehow together with metadata. There is something like the web annotation data model that is being used there. And yeah, I think we are pretty far with the work on that one. Yeah.
So just a word about the ISO 32000 Part 2 errata process. And it's actually, recently the committees have agreed to expand it beyond ISO 32000 Part 2. So it's now possible for anybody, not just PDF Association members, I hasten to add, but anybody reading the current generation PDF specification to go to the PDF issues repo on GitHub and submit an issue. Those issues, first of all, they go to Peter Wyatt, who'll take a look and probably offer his view. They are all screened and reviewed by the PDF technical working group, debated there. Those comments obviously appear on GitHub, and resolutions are also posted there. And those errata, once adopted, go through and they become, they eventually appear on pdfissues.pdfa.org, and from there on towards the next draft of the ISO specification itself. So there's a straightforward route now to providing, you run into a typo, you run into something that's genuinely fully confusing or doesn't make any sense. That could happen, right? It still could happen. As Peter said in his keynote, it's a 1,000-page specification, and it's extraordinary how many little things there are still left in there that get found at a rate of about one every couple of days still, and some bigger things too. So the errata process is an excellent way if you're working with a PDF standard or subset specification. Go to GitHub, go to PDF Association/PDF-issues, and go ahead and submit your issue there. So I guess I'm going to touch on briefly the PDF Association's work. We kind of have two lobes of work. We do develop specifications. We've alluded to some of these. For example, PDF raster, which later became PDF-R. Some of these are more in the line of best practice guides, which have been adopted out in the world as something approaching a specification. But for a lot of people, they're using Matterhorn protocol as their means of understanding PDF UA. Not least because to get PDF UA, you have to spend $120, and you have to actually read the thing. And it's a dense PDF specification, very technical language. Matterhorn gives you essentially an algorithm not a simple one, but an algorithm to determining whether or not your file complies or doesn't comply with PDF UA. So for a lot of people, that's a specification, a very popular download from pdfa.org. PDF raster, I mentioned, the tag PDF best practice guide. These are varieties of publications. Some are works in progress. So far, we have not yet published any of our techniques for accessibility. These are atomic test files covering many different use cases of tagged PDF. And there's a liaison working group that's meeting weekly to develop that list of cases, and we're going to begin to start publishing them on pdfa.org in the near future. So who knows, upcoming there'll be some sort of PDF next or some next iteration of the PDF specification. That's something you're likely to see as a function of a PDF Association activity. In the standards program, this is where specifications that are not all of them by any means, but some of the specifications and other kinds of documents that we might generate in the association, the ISO standards program is our way in which we can publish these through the ISO standards process and go through their entire system, which involves getting the buy-in of many delegates from various countries and so on. To achieve that, the ability to generate an ISO standard. So the association as I mentioned before, has acquired the management of this standards program for ISO TC 171 SC2, and so which has scope for almost all of the PDF standards with the exception of PDFX and PDFET. So a lot of different work in the association pertaining to both specification development and other kinds of informative or useful content that whether or not it's an ISO standard, it's generally freely available. And then over here, there are ISO standards which we can't control, which are copyright ISO, which you have to pay to access, but which we nonetheless support in terms of providing new content into that system. So just a brief overview on ISO processes. You'll see acronyms if you look at the ISO site, or even if you're downloading these files from the PDF Association from the ISO document download area, which is every PDF Association member it can log into the website, can go to the ISO documents area, pull down these documents. You'll see working draft and committee draft. There's no magic there. These are two different flavors of the same draft. Really, you want to look at the date to determine what the latest document is. A draft international standard has achieved some degree of maturity, and it's in the final lap just before it becomes an ISO standard. If you're interested in that subject, the DIS is a really good place to, if you have something that you really need to say about that document, the DIS is a good place to make sure it gets known. And so international standards, or ISs, of course, they require reconfirmation periodically. So every 5 years, ISO triggers the management committee to say, hey, is this document something you want to withdraw? Does it have to be updated? Does it have to be revised, or are you going to confirm it as is? Technical specifications, on the other hand, and these are the extensions to PDF that are published, tend to come out as technical specifications. They can only live for 3 years and then they die. And the intent of that's for a reason, and the intent is that this puts the document in the field, creates an opportunity for traction. Either at the end of 3 years, that material is expected to either become an international standard for itself or be adopted and integrated into an existing standard. So what would be characteristic would be an extension for PDF after it goes through that cycle of being a technical standard, and if there's community support for it, it would go into the IS, to the PDF itself. So, you may hear some reference to ISO Fast Track. This is a relatively rapid process for once the document has achieved a degree of maturity, it's possible to send it through a process where the ISO committees basically get a limited number of votes. It doesn't have a multi-year development process. So the one important thing to know about ISO standards is that it's getting harder to do all of the work in the ISO committees. All new ISO projects have a maximum 3-year lifespan from initiation to completion and publication. So you've got to get on that. That's particularly when your committees meet only twice a year, that can be a challenge to produce documents in that life cycle. So it's typical. I think what we're finding is that more and more work is being done up front, and maturity is being achieved in the content. In the slightly less formal context of the PDF Association or other organizations, they get their stuff pretty ready, and then they don't try and do a tremendous amount of work necessarily within the ISO program, but rely on experts in the community, professional community, to get involved with the work when it's at a relatively formative stage. So I'll just move on from there. So the ISO, there is in fact a white paper that describes our process as agreed by TC 171 SC2 to the ISO standardized extensions of PDF. It's a white paper authored by WG8. So in the white paper, the fundamental sort of requirement that it includes is the idea that, and that this being PDF and interoperability being the sort of fundamental value proposition of our technology, that two independent interoperable specifications or implementations are necessary before a given extension can be published as an ISO extension to PDF. So you may be wondering, how do I get to the ISO table? Boy, it sounds like a tremendous amount of fun, doesn't it? And I knew that you would think that, because you're here and you're not asleep. So there are two basic fundamental ways to get involved in ISO standards development, if that's the sort of entry point that you want to do. You can participate through the ISO process itself, okay? And so for participating members, so that means through your national body. What is your national body? Each country has its own national body that may or may not be involved with ISO TC 171 SC2. Each national body actually determines for itself which one of the technical committees and subcommittees it will actually have delegates for, and that's usually a function of who wants to be a delegate in those various countries. So as you can see from the list here, not all countries on Earth are even members of TC 171 SC2 at all, much less participating members. Participating members are the only ones who can vote at the ISO table. Observing members may send delegates to the meetings, but they may not vote at the ISO table, okay? So there are two ways to go. One of them is you can join your national body's delegation to the meeting. And that way you get on the mailing list and you get invited to go and you appear in the ISO global database, and you get to go to the ISO meeting and you sit at the table and you can participate and bring your comments, submit comments ahead, have your comments heard by the other delegates at the table, see them resolved, see a solid answer, and so on to your concern. There's another way, which is you can get to the ISO table, and everything else is the same. There's no special privilege to it. You can go to the ISO table through the PDF Association. So the PDF Association is a Category A liaison to the ISO TC171 SC2. And what that means is that we have the ability, for example, to submit documents into the SC2's document authoring process. But we also have the ability to have PDF Association members attend ISO meetings. So now what you don't have is a vote as a delegate from a member body when you attend through the PDF Association. You don't have a vote. You're simply there as a representative of a Category A liaison. However, what you would find, and everybody who's been at these ISO meetings would agree with me here, is that the table consists of a whole bunch of very friendly experts in the subject who are delighted when somebody else shows up, some new face, and says, I've got a question, I've got a point, I have a concern with this, and it's a congenial atmosphere where if you have something you're interested in and you want to just get involved, this is a perfect route into it. And the lack of an ability to vote is by no means a lack of influence on the process, right? You make a solid point at that table, you'll be listened to. There's no question about it. So there are two fundamental routes in. You can work through your national member body. Here in Germany, it's DIN. The United States, it's ANSI. It's a British Standards Institute in the UK. It's Canada, Standards Australia, and Standards Australia in Australia. And so many different individual organizations, or you can go through the PDF Association and work that way. So that is we've made it, Dietrich, through all of our slides. So to get in touch with us and to stay in touch regarding the ISO, work in the ISO, first of all, the very simplest way, sign up for the PDF Association newsletter. That way you'll be advised of the next upcoming ISO meeting. You'll get an update on just the top line, on what's happened in that meeting. Depending upon your interest, degree of involvement, you may want to start participating in those meetings yourself. And so there are a variety of ways that we've provided contact information here, variety of ways to get in touch and to play a role at the ISO table and in the PDF Association, of course, and all the technical working groups and liaison working groups preparing material for the ISO table.